Hi, Lori Vann with Lori Vann Counseling, Speaking, and Media Consulting, and wanted to answer a quick question that I frequently have asked of me when I give the self-injury talks or in sessions or during support groups. And that question is self-injury more prevalent now than in previous generations? And yes and no. So first, one, I do believe, thanks to social media and media of many different forms, that self-injury has increased in prevalence. People are exposed to it much more. People are talking about it. You have, unfortunately, some blogs and other websites that you can go to that are basically pro-self-harm or can be very triggering for those that self-harm. And that's true for eating disorders as well. You have pro-Anna and pro-Mia websites out there, which is yet another reason why caregivers really need to be aware of what their minors are watching on different media outlets. So I do think the numbers have increased some because of that. However, I also think our understanding of self-injury has greatly changed over the last several decades too. We're talking about it, and we also know how to better assess for it. In previous generations, because please keep in mind, self-harm is not a new concept. This is something that goes back to Hammurabi's Law. It goes back to biblical times. Check out the book of Mark. It's mentioned in there, a little bit different circumstances. But self-harm's been around for a real long time. It's just how we used to treat it was that someone was psychotic, because only a psychotic person would harm themselves. That was the mindset back then. And of course, we've changed that in the last 50 or so years, thankfully. Actually, Dr. Carl Menninger was one of the early ones to talk about suicide being different than self-injury. And that would be another reason that we're better assessing for this behavior. Now, my estimate, based on so many different statistics that I've looked at over the last 15, 16 years since I started to study self-harm, my estimate is that we're looking at a lifetime risk, at least in the United States, of about 20 to 25%. And that might seem shocking. But if you look at research studies that were done back in '06, and you're looking at almost 20% of a college population that has experimented with it, I got news for you. In the last 10 years, it's not as if things have just become so much better. That, if anything, those numbers have increased since some of those stats. And things that I'm seeing that have come out in the last several years, they're all trending towards, we're looking at least a 20% lifetime risk of people experimenting with this. And people may experiment with it once or twice, does not make them a self-injurer. However, who knows who it's going to take to and who it won't. Some people, sort of like with substance abuse, might experiment here and there, not really your thing, and they move on. Self-injury is sort of like that too. Some people might try it once or twice, doesn't really work for them, and they move on. But there are a lot of people that do it, male and female, so it's both. And it does take, if you will. And there's not a way to really predict that. So self-harm is much more common than what people may think or believe it is. And if you know how to properly assess for it, then the numbers might be interesting. And some of the statistics are in a caregiver's guide to self-injury, and then how to do a proper assessment, especially differentiating between suicide versus self-injury. I have that in a practitioner's guide to the treatment of self-injury, tips, techniques, activities, and debates. Both of those are available on my website, LoriVannCounseling.com, in the shop page, or on Amazon. I also do give presentations on those topics, and I've presented on self-harm probably over 65 times, I think, at least. But trying to be a resource, and would be glad to answer questions that you have that come up, that pop up in your mind. So you can contact me, and also please feel free to check out my other YouTube videos on self-injury. Thank you.